On the night of February 26th, a young man walked alone to his home from a local convenience store. In his hand was a bag of Skittles and a bottle of iced tea. He had no idea that at the same time, someone was watching him. Following from the dark, a 28-year-old man armed with a firearm stalked the young man from inside his car. The man, George Zimmerman, against the advice of the non-emergency police dispatcher and completely unprompted, got out of his car and confronted the lone boy. After a physical altercation, Zimmerman took out his firearm and shot the boy, killing him, whose name was Trayvon Martin. Prior to this, Zimmerman had been appointed as the program coordinator of his local neighborhood watch. He made nearly 50 calls to police over a span of 8 years, calling over minor issues like potholes and children playing in the street. Zimmerman's paranoia and hypervigilance led him to call the police several times over people he deemed suspicious, all who he reported were black males. There's no doubt in my mind that Zimmerman thought of himself as a type of vigilante, a protector of his community from the threat of loud parties and potholes, looking for an opportunity to prove himself. And on that night in 2011, he had no idea that his grandiose act of paranoia would change everything. There's a specific figure that looms over the history of cinema. He is depicted as being older, tired, and pushed to the edge. His world has been shattered, usually by the violation or death of a woman he loves. He's a man who has lost faith in the system, and he decides he's going to take the law into his own hands. He's alone, hyperviolent, and fueled by vengeance. This is the white male avenger. We've seen him in movies like Death Wish, Dirty Harry, and Memento. We've seen him evolve in modern films like The Batman, Prisoners, and The Crow, but whether he's a grizzled cop, a grieving father, or an undead rock star, the core DNA remains the same, a reactionary, a solitary figure who believes that violence is the only answer. Hello, baby bats and scaredy cats. Today we're going to talk about the white male vigilante movie. These films have always been in my life, probably the same for you, and maybe you've never really thought about these movies that deeply. I've been thinking about these movies for a while, especially after the release of recognized and renowned filmmaker Uwe Boll's new film, Citizen Vigilante. I saw the trailer for that movie and, okay.
Oh my God. I can't. I am disgusted.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we're going to discuss those types of films, that genre of film, and what it means in this climate, this kind of socio-political world that we're living in right now, especially in a world where shootings, mass murders, and quote-unquote vigilante justice happens on a semi-frequent basis. Today we're going to dive deep into the dark heart of this genre, which I feel like is kind of under-talked about, under-analyzed. We'll look how these films structure themselves, why the victim is almost always a woman or maybe a community, and why the hero is almost always a white man standing alone, armed to the teeth, ready to take on any and all those who go against him, and how this trope has different contexts now that we live in a world of deadly shootings and mass murders happening all the time, mostly committed by angry white guys. And I really have to ask, what are they so angry about? What is it that white men feel they've been so wronged by in society that they have to do these rampages? So let's break down the archetype. To understand the Avenger, we have to go back to the social anxiety of the late 1960s and early 70s. Crime rates were skyrocketing in American cities, and the public felt the system was failing them. The rise of the Miranda warning in 1966, which gave people more rights during arrest, was seen by many as a sign that the law protected the guilty. Many white people were anxious about the rise of the civil rights movement and saw the riots and protests as indicators of society losing its order. Enter 1971's Dirty Harry. Clint Eastwood's Harry Callahan is a cop who despises the bureaucracy that lets killers walk free. This wasn't just a movie, it was a political statement. It was a critique of liberal permissiveness in society. The audience was primed to side with a man who chafed against the rules meant to protect criminals. Then came 1974's Death Wish. If Dirty Harry was a cop bending the rules, Death Wish was an ordinary citizen abandoning them completely. Paul Kersey, played by Charles Bronson, is an architect whose wife is murdered and whose daughter is assaulted. He represents a massive power fantasy for the average white city dweller. The ability to finally take care of the problem when the justice system fails him. This all comes to a head with the 1984 subway shooting in New York City. Burkhard Goetz, at the time, was a 37-year-old man who operated an electronics business out of his apartment. On the night of December 22nd, 4 black male teenagers approached Goetz in the subway asking him for money. Goetz had already been mugged in 1981 and had been carrying around an unregistered .38 caliber revolver, of which the group did not know. No one knew. When he was approached by 2 of the teens, Goetz fired 4 shots in their direction, striking 3 of them. One of the boys, Daryl Caby, was laying on the ground of the train car, cowering when Goetz approached him, stood over him, aimed the gun at him, and said, "You don't look so bad, here's another," and shot him again. Afterwards, Goetz fled. The shooting was a media sensation. The New York press dubbed him the, quote, subway vigilante. A TV poll from WABC in January 1985 showed that 49% out of the 515 New Yorkers actually approved of his actions, while only 31% disapproved. He had considerable support from the Guardian Angels, a volunteer patrol group mostly made up of Black and Hispanic teenagers, founded by Curtis Lewa, yes, that Curtis Lewa, former New York City mayoral candidate. They fundraised thousands of dollars from subway riders for Goetz's defense. The NRA donated $20,000 to his case, and the right-leaning civil rights organization CORE offered to raise money for him. Stephen L. Carter, a professor of law at Yale, said of the event, "The tragedy of the Goetz case is that the public, barely aware of the facts, was rooting for him to get away with it. The tragedy is that a public eager to identify transgressors in advance decided from the start that Mr. Goetz was a hero and that his Black victims deserved what they got." Goetz was known to his neighbors as being vocally racist, often voicing racist threats. That's not mentioned anywhere in the trial, though. Goetz ultimately served 8 months in jail and a $5,000 fine. This trial would go on to be the inspiration for the main character in Todd Phillips' 2019 film, Joker. Academic researchers Tammy Castle and Benjamin Mead note how the, quote, urban vigilante replaced the Western vigilante in pop culture. The frontier was gone. The city was the new Wild West. These films allowed a frustrated audience to vicariously live out a dark fantasy of control and retribution. In many ways, they are deeply reactionary stories of preserving a vision of patriarchal order against the chaos of modernity and integration. Now let's talk about the engine that drives these men: grief. The violence is rarely about something as small as a parking dispute. It's almost always triggered by a horrific act against a loved one, and notably against a woman or a child. You look at Christopher Nolan's Memento from 2000, Leonard Shelby's entire reality is built around the rape and murder of his wife. He is avenging a female victim. Even in a film that is as complex and deconstructive as Memento, the core narrative remains. His identity is defined solely by loss. In 1994's The Crow, this takes it literally. Eric Draven is brought back from the dead specifically to avenge the rape and murder of his fiancée. The pain is so profound that it transcends death itself. In Death Sentence from 2007, it's a slightly different setup. The man is pushed to violence by the death of his son, but it's still the same, a crime against the family unit. And rarely do the women get to avenge their own crimes, it's always the men. These men are touched by tragedy and do not turn to community, their loved ones, or therapeutic services to heal. They turn to guns. In a lot of these movies, the law has failed them, and they feel they have to seek justice on their own. This is in violation to what white men are used to, that the law and justice system would be on their side. So when it isn't, it's seen as a violation of natural order. What does it say to someone who the law has never protected or prioritized, though? What happens to the woman who herself is assaulted, or the black family whose child was lynched? Are these people justified in any act of vigilante justice? Are they? While these types of films are made occasionally, they are vastly outnumbered by angry white male vigilante movies. Many of the movies of a black person getting vengeance or justice in movies like Django Unchained or A Time to Kill frame racial injustice as like a contained thing and a contained incident of the past. Those acts of white men burning crosses on lawn or attacking black families are done with, they're over with. They're isolated cases. And although we enjoy watching white characters get vengeance for their family, a black person killing all the white people who harmed them, I don't think American audiences would be able to handle that. In 2025, an 18-year-old named Ryan Hinton was killed by police in Cincinnati, Ohio. Hinton was in a reportedly stolen vehicle when he fled the scene and was shot 4 times in the back. The police alleged he had a weapon, but camera footage does not show him using or displaying any weapon. And honestly, how dangerous can someone be when they're trying to run away from you? The next day, Ryan's father, Rodney, struck and killed Deputy Sheriff Larry Henderson. Hinton became somewhat of a folk hero in the black community. After years of deaths of black boys at the hands of police, this felt like justice, real justice. Hinton did something so many fathers wish they could. The image of Hinton being led out of the court next to a wall of police officers with his chin held high became a symbol of black resistance and defiance against America's police state. As of recording, Hinton has not been sentenced. A crucial aspect of this archetype is isolation. The white male avenger does not have a partner. He does not have a community. He works alone. This isolation is often framed as a kind of strength. It means he has no one to hold him back and no one to get hurt. He's usually obsolete, a retired officer or army, he's unemployed, a widower, or some kind of social outcast. This figure is usually a man out of time, a relic of traditional masculinity that feels threatened. As scholar Gregory Frame notes, the violence is a misguided attempt to reassert his position as a breadwinner and patriarch. It's no coincidence that these films saw such a surge during the 1970s, during a time period when women and people of color were seeing advancements in society, financially and economically. The feeling that white men were losing their place as the head of society was a hidden fear and anxiety, and honestly, it never really quite went away. In 2013's Prisoners, the protagonist is a father, but the system fails him and he fails to protect his family as the patriarch. He isolates himself from his wife, his son, the police, his friends, descending into a violent spiral alone to find the missing girls. He tortures a suspect. The film is grim and ambiguous, but the archetype is present. And in The Sound of Freedom from 2023, a highly fictionalized account of the work of since disgraced CEO of Operation Underground Railroad, Tim Ballard, channels this archetype into a contemporary conspiracy thriller, featuring a lone government agent avenging trafficked children. Even the Batman from 2022 fits this. I mean, Batman to a T is an avenger. Batman is an orphan billionaire living in the shadows. He's literally the example of the white male vigilante. He begins as a monster of vengeance, punishing criminals and creating fear. Although the film attempts to correct this by the end, pushing him towards a new narrative of hope, which I kind of want to make a video about, but Tell me in the comments below if you want me to. The violence in these films is rarely quick or clinical. It is stylized and cathartic. It aims to titillate and let the audience experience vicariously the thrill of punishing people who seem to break society's rules. The hyperviolence is the point. It's the ultimate expression of the power of the individual over the state. In recent years, the genre has basically jumped the shark and gone into overdrive, often losing any pretense and becoming a mouthpiece for far-right ideology. Take the recent film Citizen Vigilante from 2024, directed by Uwe Boll. The film features a lone vigilante in Europe hunting criminals who are presented as mostly Arab and African immigrants. The film's finale is a grotesque and violent massacre of an entire Muslim family, played entirely by Israeli actors. The narrative has evolved from avenging a specific female victim to avenging the perceived destruction of white womanhood. There's an audience for these movies, and it's less and less coming from the general population. These films of a lone white man going against typically groups of brown-skinned Mexicans or brown-skinned Middle Eastern people or black-skinned inner-city thugs has found a viewership among right-leaning men. In the post-Trump election era, we have seen the anxiety and resurgence of a type of role play that white men perform when they feel that their place as a man has been reduced. These men are finding themselves even more at odds with the time's progressive and inclusive environment. And instead of seeking to learn from or possibly join these communities, they have decided to form white supremacist gangs. These men are living in a world where their contributions are less about power and more irrelevant than ever. And they know this. Today, most of these movies are made for a specific demographic of men with stars that are familiar to them. Liam Neeson, Bruce Willis, Nicolas Cage, John Travolta, Steven Seagal. Men who saw their peaks in the 80s and the 90s. But what is the purpose of these movies in a time where nearly every day we hear of a devastating and violent gun death committed by a white man? When we live in fear of a school shooting, a mass shooting in a mall or a church, or a random act of violence against a minority group or women? What is the intention of making movies about how these men are actually the good guys? Currently, men account for 75 to 80% of all suicides committed in the country. The rate of men with 6 or more friends has gone down from 55% in 1990 to 27% in 2021. Men are more isolated than ever. Third spaces have been closed down, clubs and bars are outside the finances of many people, and it's just cheaper to stay inside and play video games. They even have a name for this. It's called the male loneliness crisis. Even though women are also experiencing higher levels of loneliness, but I guess doesn't count as a crisis when it's us.
Okay.
But whatever. Recently, in Marvel's Thunderbolts, the main character Bob is found to be the source of both unimaginable power and deep trauma. This movie eschews the traditional narrative of a man overcoming his demons with force, and instead embraces a message of community and found family. This is the new masculinity. One that doesn't isolate himself or seek to solve every problem with violence, but one who tries to be at peace with himself and his pain. These films reflect genuine anxiety for white men. When society feels unstable and institutions feel corrupt, the fantasy of the lone individual who can fix things with his bare hands is seductive. It's a myth, but it's a powerful myth. For so many people, they imagine that Martin Luther King Jr. single-handedly upheld the civil rights movement, that Barack Obama alone would be the end of all of America's racism, and that one fat, orange, fetid, rotted, corrupt businessman would somehow be the solution to America's economic issues. We're always looking for a savior. People are looking for their lone hero, their Luke Skywalker, their Neo, the one person who's going to save us. The myth that it can be done alone is an entirely individualistic fever dream. However, we're starting to see cracks in the myth. In The Batman, tries to move the character from vengeance to hope, where in the beginning of the movie, Bruce Wayne isolates himself even from those who care the most about him. The citizens of Gotham actually fear him even as he's trying to help them. And it's only at the end of the film does he realize the value of having other people in his life, that their perspective makes him more observant, able to understand issues from a more nuanced and detailed view. That having people help him will actually be the key to accomplishing his goals instead of what he could do by himself. He realizes that vengeance is a selfish goal, one that only served him and his pain, but hope is something that he can give to the people of the city to inspire change in them. These movies are a mirror held up to a specific type of fear. When the world gets too complicated, the fantasy of being a lone, hyper-violent man who can just fix it becomes very tempting. But as these movies prove, that temptation often leads to a place of reactionary prejudice and senseless violence. That's pretty much the long and short of the white male Avenger. What do you guys think? I really want to know, honestly, like, do you like these films? I have to say, like, The Batman was one of my favorite films the year that it came out, and I like this new version. I recently saw Spider-Man Brand New Day, and it had a lot of these elements, that, like, as a young man, you need community. You need to reach out to other people. You cannot isolate yourself. Being isolated is not a noble act. It's not the proof that you are a real man. And I think that that's wonderful. I know I'm like a filthy feminist. I think that like men getting help and reaching out to each other is great. Isolation is not good for your mental health at all, and a lot of the times women and children pay the price for it, ironically. So what do you guys think? Have you seen any of these movies that I listed? My parents used to watch Dirty Harry all the time, and I hated the movies so much. Why is his gun so long? Methinks he's making up for something. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. I hope that you liked it. Please like, share, subscribe, and hype now. Jesus Christ. Thank you so much. Take care of yourselves. Take care of your neighbors. Be kind to yourselves. Be kind to one another. Because remember, the monsters are always closer than you think. All right. See you. Bye. Take care of yourself.